Am I heard? Do people hear me? All right. Thanks for watching the movie. Did you all enjoy your shredded cheese? You like that? Did you eat it? Yeah. I've really been eager to try out that shredded cheese joke on a crowd, and I'm so oh, you got marinara with it? Oh yeah, yeah, you fucked up. Yeah. Um So I guess I'm just gonna talk until I see Jonathan and David populate here. And Lucas, are you gonna be here asking the questions as well? Have I by setting my camera on, have I destroyed the system? It's fine. I'll just okay. Looks like Jonathan is having an issue. I'm gonna talk him through it.
All right, I'm also here now too.
Okay, so yeah, Jonathan believes we are going to do the Q&A on Zoom, so it just might take a moment to like get him situated here. How's it going, Lucas?
It's going pretty good. I really enjoyed the movie.
I'm
Oh,
so glad. Is that your first time seeing it?
it was, yeah. I wanted to save it for the movie night. There's Jonathan.
Awesome. And then we're waiting on David here.
Yeah, I sent him the schedule, so I can send him another
Oh,
message.
cool. Well, thanks for hosting us here, Lucas. That was fun. This is the closest thing I've had to a theatrical experience. And like Uh, so since March 2020, I have yet to go out to a movie theater. I've been sheltering in place for a long time. So this is nice. A great crowd, really fun and rowdy and appropriate, like text screaming, which I wanted. So I'm very satisfied. Um, so Jonathan, can you do we have your sound?
Jonathan's mic is still muted, so I think he just needs to unmute his mic. Should be a
Mm-hmm.
button somewhere. I'm not sure if he's on desktop or mobile.
You do not have permission
Try
to.
leaving the channel and coming back. I gave you the role with the permission, so I might just have to update.
We finally got rid of him.
There.
There he goes. um, well, so ahead of any questions, I'll say that Jonathan, I do. Can I hear your lovely voice, Jonathan?
I think so. I hope so.
There we go.
All right.
Yep.
Yeah,
Perfect.
Wonderful.
and I know we're still waiting on David, but I think just the story begins with Jonathan and I, because Jonathan is a good friend of mine, and we went to UCLA's School of Theater, Film, and Television together, and he did some music and sound on some plays I did, and we collaborated a number of times. And I told Jonathan, someday you're gonna score the movies I make, and he's like, yeah, sure, sure he will, sure. But sure enough, I came to collect years and years later, and he was the first person attached before I had a cast, before I had a crew, which I know that's probably not the standard way you work, Jonathan. When someone hands you a film, it's like, score this. But in my case, I wanted to go in to the project knowing I had you on board, because that was very important to have your music, because I'm such a big fan of the work you do, and I wanted to sprinkle some of that goodness into something I make.
Ah, no, that's very nice. Yeah, no, that is highly unusual that I'm at all involved in at like the script stage. But it's always great when that gets to happen because we get to make a lot of decisions that otherwise you just don't get to make at all.
Right, right. Um, so let's see here. And Jonathan getting attached to the film, he shortly thereafter brought in David, who became, the third in our trio to, execute on the vision of the sound. And I guess we can like answer the questions as they come up. I'm sure we'll fill in a lot of blanks that way. But anyway, I chat. I'm a chatty person. So I'm gonna shut up for a moment and let Lucas or Jonathan talk, and I'll shut the fuck up.
Yeah, I guess. Yeah, I haven't heard back from David, so I'm not sure. I sent him another message.
Okay. Well, we could field questions until he pops along, but
Yeah.
I gotta say I love your room, Lucas.
Thank you.
That's like the type of bunker I would want to be in during the apocalypse. It's really
Yeah,
cool.
I had a few questions of my own, I guess, that I could ask before we go to the stuff in the channel. Um, so, Michael, I know that you've co-written and co-directed a few films before, but this was your first like feature-length thing that was like fully
Yeah,
yours, writing, directing,
yeah.
producing. How is that experience different from, being part of a team working on something?
Well, it's the first time I had to, make something happen that came from my heart and my soul. And while I think this film is fun and it is like a thriller, it's also deeply personal for me. And that we espouse on themes that are very close to my heart. About what is the value of winning if other people have to lose. That's a question I've always kind of held on to as I've grown up. So this film, you know, is the first thing I've conceptualized and drove through to completion. The major difference, though, is money, because every other project other people were producing, in this case, Murderberry Win was funded entirely out of my life savings and through 4 or 5 really gnarly loans that I just finally finished paying off, a few months back. It was very hard to wear the hat of director, writer, sometimes in the movie, editor, uh, but then also producer, because like I could be in the middle of a really intense scene, and then my assistant director will come up and whisper in my ear, "The catering is late. What do you want to do about it?" And it's like, when I'm in the middle of the heat, like something amazing happening, I don't want to be thinking about the catering. I'm not fucking eating. I'm stressed, trying to like, hit these scenes on time. So, that's the major difference. I didn't have enough money to pay people to come on and help me field requests and help me deal with, above the line nonsense people don't really care about, if you want to be creative. And, I think I had to wear a ton of hats, and I will never do it again unless the project is right.
You say that, yeah.
I mean, I'm totally gonna do another one again, like
Yeah, of
with you,
course you are,
Jonathan.
yeah.
But like, yeah, I love it too. But it was a nightmare.
Uh, I I hate to ask this question because it's all that's being talked about, right now. But how did the pandemic kind of change the course of the film? And I guess for both of you, I don't know if it had a lot of effect, or how much you got done before that all started.
Uh, This is filmed. Sorry, Jonathan. I'm not gonna let Jonathan talk tonight. I know everyone's excited for Jonathan. I'll start and then I'll let
I'm,
Jonathan
I'll just go
finish.
ahead and mute. Yeah.
No, 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 no. We made this before the pandemic, and right before we hit the festival scene, the pandemic happened. Thus, like cutting short the possibility of having a theatrical festival experience. A lot of the work, though, on the sound was done during the pandemic by your cue.
Yeah. Yeah, we had finished the music. Oh gosh, like significantly before the pandemic, like a year before or something.
Yep, that's right.
Just about. And then sort of well into the pandemic, like over the summer of 2020, Michael, you started getting into festivals, and I had assumed the movie had been finished, and I had just not heard that it had finished. But it turned out that there was like quite a bit of sound work left to do, and the person who was supposed to do it was unable to do it. And Michael needed sort of someone to come in and just kind of fix it, like clean up the sound to be festival ready, and like that ended up being basically a full sound design and mix of the movie that we did over the summer of 2020, like in
We
August.
threw out I think we threw out all the other work,
Not
so
all
you
of
could
it.
just kind of redo it.
No, not all of it.
Mhm.
There was some good stuff in there, and there was a pretty workable dialogue edit when I got the project. So, but just because of differing like styles of setting up like a movie mix,
Mhm.
it was still a lot of work to sort of go back in and do it. But it was also done very, very quickly. The sound.
I see David. Oh,
There we go.
it's just appeared.
There we go.
Perfect. That's David.
So
David's
David, it looks
great.
like you're still deafened and muted. Oh well, he can't hear me say that because he's deafened.
But yeah, those dates there. I mean, the pandemic is one long sleepless day, for me. So, but I think what you're saying, those dates align with my rough memory. It just feels like
Yeah.
we haven't stopped working on the movie, since I wrote it, 3.5 years back.
Yeah, for me, I mean, it's definitely little bursts. And honestly, when you asked me to come back in and sort of work on the sound, I hadn't seen it in so long, and I hadn't heard the music in so long that it was like I sort of got to come into the movie fresh, which I think was great, which was really fun.
When we added new music cues, which I think we could talk about the corn cut if you want.
Sure, we could if you want.
Yeah. So as a joke, I told Jonathan, like, hey, what if I
You
pay
thought
you
it was
like
a
an
joke.
extra? I mean, if I pay you 20 extra bucks, can you deliver a version of this film without your music, but only with corn music? And he delivered. He delivered. There's 3 versions of Freak on a Leash. Um, it's actually
I got
really
my
it.
I got my $20. Yeah.
I was good on that money.
That was a line
It,
item on the invoice. Yeah, yeah.
yeah.
I just in the mail today, I got one of the old Ahab CDs, the Captain Jump style with all the
Oh, Jesus. What is this turning
um,
into?
yeah. And so this very much feels like a remnant from that kind of stuff. The corn cut.
Yeah.
Will this ever be released? Is this going to be
I've
the Snyder cut
yes,
of this film?
I've
Monkey's been
told
the
my
holdout on signing off on that. Yeah. We just
yeah,
can't
yeah.
can't get
I
into
thought I thought it was Brian Welch, but I mixed he and Monkey up. I do have it, and I've decided I will make it available for select people who reach out and ask to watch it. It will not be available commercially as Korn has not signed off. But yeah, I see no reason why we can't share it. I mean, Jonathan, you're proud of your work, right?
Oh, very much so. That was a really long evening.
It does exist though, and I'm quite
Yeah.
proud of. It told me, more than anything, it told me Jonathan is a real friend, and
Wow.
I'm like, I will continue to collaborate with this guy because he takes my jokes very seriously.
Um, yeah, I mean, what's funny, I mean, we laugh about the corn cut because it's obviously
Yeah,
a ridiculous thing.
but good
But
segue.
what's funny about doing it, like I actually learned a lot from doing it. I sort of thought I was joking when I was inserting corn music into this movie, and actually doing the corn cut is the thing that led me to add new cues to the movie. Because as I started
Yeah.
hearing these scenes that I had already scored or that David had already scored with this sort of ridiculous, terrible choice of corn music underneath it, then like I would find a story beat that we had missed or something, because something would work about it, and I would like look back at our cue and I'm like, oh, maybe I should cut it here and maybe move this around, and oh, I think I need a new cue here. And it was actually a really weirdly informative process. Because no, I mean the corn cut is the thing I worked on when I sort of like it was late and I would get tired and kind of spacey and goofy, and I would just like download another corn album and find the worst song on it and throw it in there.
How did you figure out which one was the worst?
Yeah, that was tough. My knowledge of the band Korn, I will admit, before doing this cut was like pretty limited. I hadn't heard any of that music in a really long time, and I was never really like into that band. I found some good stuff.
Did you do any? You didn't use any of the. Oh, sorry. Go ahead.
I was gonna say enough about corn, but
you brought it up.
I know.
I was prepared to pretend that didn't exist.
You tempted us all now. This is going to be the new quest, is to see that eventually.
Yeah, my only regret is not including any of the Queen of the Damned score that Jonathan Davis did with I think Richard Gibbs. Yeah.
What about the Fieldy solo record?
Oh, there's a lot of Field of Dreams and the Fieldy's Dreams in there. Yeah. Oh yeah. Don't worry about that.
Yeah.
Anytime my rule was anytime David was playing bass in the score, I would include a cut from Fieldy's Dreams instead.
Perfect.
Yeah.
Yeah, okay. I guess let's move on to the next question. I think that's enough. That's all our allotted corn time for tonight.
That's enough.
John and David, I know you have worked together a lot, including on film scores. But this one uniquely has both of you credited as, lead artists, co-credited. I was wondering kind of what's the distinction between that and the stuff you've worked on in the past, and how did that collaboration work? Did like one of you have an idea and you built on it, or you kind of kept songs separate? And like, how did you decide who would do what scene and that kind of stuff?
David and I have worked together. We've worked together on a lot of things. Like basically,
The last
I think
15 years. Something
you
like that?
played on you played on the first movie I scored, like the first feature I scored in like 2007 or something.
Yeah.
And then
Was that Mask of the
2006
Ninja?
or something?
No. Before that.
It was actually a movie called Reversion.
Okay.
Which I'm not sure is available to see anywhere. And there wasn't very much music in that movie. Most of the time that we've worked together, I've written the music and David has guitar, bass, Rhodes, whatever instruments on it. And he had expressed interest in sort of co-writing and doing some like writing on something. And so we did a movie together called Trespassers that I kind of wrote most of the themes, but David wrote a bunch of cues, like sort of in a more traditional, like additional music by role, And then this movie showed up, and I was like, "Hey, we had a lot of fun doing that. Let's just split the cues and split the credit and call it a score by the two of us." And as opposed to Trespassers, where like I definitely like worked on all of David's cues. Like your cues would come in, and I would add sounds and like mixed everything. Like our cues in Murderberry Win are very, very separate. Actually.
Yeah, I think the way we did it, if I recall, is you broke it down and you were like, I'll do this one, you do that one, and we just went through it that way. And they were pretty separate.
Yeah.
Whereas other times it would be like, well, you do this and then you send it to me. But this one was, I did my stuff, you did your stuff. We discussed.
Although you played on a lot of my cues.
Like
you played guitar and bass and Rhodes, I think, on a lot of my cues.
Some bass clarinet, I think. Or that might have only been on my stuff.
I don't. Yeah. On your cues, you did, I think, but all the bass clarinet on my cues is Max, I think, Max Kaplan.
Right.
Yeah, and then by the end we were kind of like you did some edits of some of my cues to fit certain scenes,
Right.
and I took a couple of yours and like was adding layers, and so by the end it kind of started to get a little more
Right.
homogenous to make the kind of two sounds meet in the middle. But I've never done a movie that way, like where it's really that compartmentalized, and that was kind of fun.
Yeah.
It was interesting.
Yeah. So going off of that, also, both of you, I know you make plenty of music, outside of just the film soundtrack. How does that process differ when you have a visual element that you're referencing as opposed to starting out just the music?
Well, I don't know. For me, it's actually it's a lot easier for me to write music to picture than just to write music out of nowhere, because you have this kind of like this like timeline guide.
Mm-hmm.
You know, like where it's supposed to start and where it's supposed to end, and like kind of what the emotional beats are, and that's stuff you cannot change. So you have this kind of like grid that you have to write to, and the stuff that's really hard for me to figure out in writing music, right? Like big structural things is just decided for me by the movie, you know. Which is honestly, I see a parallel there to my work in clipping too, because we're so formally specific about like rap song structure, you know, that it's like, you know, rap songs can only be so long, and they kind of have usually they have like verse chorus structures, and we kind of can lay out these structures and then we just kind of fill it in. And I think it's weirdly very similar to me in that way.
I think also like the blank page is smaller because when you're just writing a piece of music, you have this, you do whatever you want, whereas there are things that are definitively completely inappropriate for the scene, so it kind of like shrinks your, it makes the blank page a little bit smaller, you know.
Although, yeah, saying all that, I would also say then all the music that I wrote for Murderberry Win, except for maybe one or two like little pieces, was not written to picture.
Yeah, all my stuff was in this case was written to picture. Yeah.
Yeah, that's kind of an interesting division of labor too, right? This might be the first narrative like fiction film that I've written not to picture. Most of the documentaries that I've done, I'll write half or 2/3 of the music not to picture, and then kind of fill in the gaps when I find that I can't edit it in. And I find that usually yields better music with more sort of audacious choices, because it works first as music, and then finding a way to make it work in the film is a little bit easier sometimes and sometimes harder. And I just never tried to do a fiction film that way because I thought it had to be so sort of Mickey Moused and like beat by beat and structured in such a way that it didn't make sense to work that way. But for this movie, for whatever reason, maybe the time, or maybe because I knew I was working with David, or maybe because I knew, Michael and I have like sort of an implicit, like a history and an implicit trust, and I knew I could sort of try new techniques out and see if they worked, and I wouldn't get fired, So I wrote like pretty much all of the music that I wrote for this movie not to picture, and then it became kind of an editing and layering and adding and taking out elements kind of job, which is also what creates what feels like themes and motifs in the score,
Interesting. Okay, yeah, I had a couple more questions before we go to the crowd questions. Michael, for the prep work for the movie, there's two main things I was wondering about. The cast obviously had a ton of chemistry. How did that process go of finding them? Did they already know any of each other, or was it just really good auditions?
No one knew anyone. And Adam, or Eric Lane, who plays Adam, is one of my best friends, and he went to UCLA with Jonathan and I. He was the very first person I met when I moved to Los Angeles, and I've always wanted to cast him against type, and let him be like, a real antagonist. because he's the sweetest person. Sweetest
the
person.
nicest human being.
Yeah. He's really nice. He's like really, really nice. We talk every day. Once, Craig Kukowski, who plays Vivi Stubbs, I had met him once or twice at an improv festival. I reached out to him. He was the first one cast because until he was associated, I was going to film this with, nameless high school kids in the woods for $20, with an iPhone. But I wrote Craig Kukowski, and I didn't think I'd hear back from him. I just thought like, oh, he must get offers all the time. And he's like, no, I love it. I want to be in. And, in my world, I'm like, oh shit. Because I'm not ready to do like a full movie. But attaching Craig was what encouraged me to like make this an actual production and pull out loans and like make this a real thing. Henry who plays Barrett, was a backstage.com audition. One of those auditions where once I saw the audition, I couldn't imagine Barrett any other way. It was like, no one's him. And so I offered him the role very quickly. It was just a magical audition. And then Mikeland Walker, who plays Chris, and Brian Slayton, who plays Officer Dan, were casting suggestions by my friend Coco Kleppinger, who went to UCLA with me as well. And no one had met each other. Table read, everyone connected really well. And then when we were filming, I made sure we rehearsed every scene before we went up. And that chemistry, though, is all them and their hard work and their genuine love and affection for each other.
Yeah, that's amazing. On screen you'd have no idea. You'd think these three people have worked together for years. The other part of the prep work was the actual game design. I know that
Yeah.
you are a board game fan, but have you
Yeah.
had any experience designing one in the past, or how much of the design did you have to get right before starting the script that was built around it?
Right. So I'd never made a board game before. I'd always wanted to, and I developed this board game alongside the screenplay. For any budding game designers out there, I don't recommend doing that because you'll come up with a game that's functional, but not necessarily good. I was prioritizing the quality of the screenplay. And so I was just making rules that would fit into, little pockets of speech from the characters. However, when I did my first table reading, we played the board game for the first time together, the actors and I. And when Victor von Stubbs is criticizing the game, like, oh, there's no place to house the cards, it's repetitive. Every single criticism came from criticisms of the actors the night of the table read. And they're like, oh, Mike, I don't know, maybe you should fix this. And they're like, well, you're going to fix it? And I'm like, fuck no, you're getting more lines. And so it's like, art imitating life, imitating art in that case. And it's functional, I have it. I have like a thing with a shipping company where anytime like I want to like print it out, like I could print it. I Jonathan, David, I should probably get you a copy. But
I'd
it's
love
like,
that, yeah.
yeah, it's expensive, but yeah, and the board game, anything that looks nice in the game, like the more vectorized graphics that of like the board game itself, those are all done by my wife, Amy Everson, who did the production design, and the crude drawings that are like like melt it. If it looks shitty, I did it. If it looks good, my wife did it.
Yeah, wow. So that's a lot of new experiences, going into the film. Okay, I'm gonna go
Yeah.
over to the Q&A channel. I guess just start from the back. For Jonathan and David, someone asked, as an aspiring composer who'd love to write soundtracks of all types, do you have any recommendations for those who'd like to compose for media? On a side note, I'm particularly interested in a lot of video game OSTs, and I see both of you have mostly written for film. Would either of you ever consider composing for a game?
Absolutely,
I'd love
sure,
to do it. Yeah, I've worked on a few games like in music teams, and I've done like a bunch of like asset creation. I'm actually working on my first like implementation project now, sort of like really just into the deep end of working in Unity and Fmod, and it's really, really fun. So I'd love to really do a game. As for advice, I don't know, make friends with weirdos in college and they'll make you score their movie.
Yeah, that's piece of
20 years
advice.
later. Yeah. Yeah.
It's
It's all about your
friends,
friends
yeah.
and the community you make for yourself. Yeah.
And sorry, just as an insert before David answers, Jonathan, I read this great interview with you not too long ago, wherein you also said like when you're starting out, just say yes to everything, like just
Yeah. Clearly I still do that. Yeah.
I know clearly, clearly, you did this movie.
Yeah, basically both of those things. Say yes and have cool friends, and hopefully you get to work on their projects. I mean, most of it, that's how you get most of it. Absolutely.
Well, and be a generative artist yourself. Like nobody's going to hire you to score their movie if you don't have any music that you've made, you know? Like I think it's much more interesting to make a body of work that illustrates who you are as an artist and then be asked to do that for a movie, as opposed to like be a chameleon,
Yeah, just do a lot of work, just work and write and write, and then hopefully somebody asks you to do something. Yeah.
Well, and just another thing too, like when you find people whose work you like, tell them. Especially if you're friends with them, don't be shy. Like I have never been shy about telling Jonathan, like I really fucking love that thing you did. Like I love Captain Ahab. I love everything he was developing all through college, and I wasn't shy about telling my friends that their work mattered to me, and it's okay to be fans of people that you like, that don't be a creep about it, but like be generous in your positivity, especially when you mean it. Well, only when you mean it. Don't lie. That's my message. Don't lie, you piece of shit.
Jonathan and Mike, well, I guess all three of you. Someone wanted to know, is there any idea or moment like that you felt of genius, or a singular moment that you felt was really well done, that you came up with, executed in music or film that you've done?
I don't believe in genius, but
I
like
think
one sort of aha moment in this.
Yeah.
I don't know.
I
don't know if he was specifically talking about the movie. I think it might just been, in general or recently.
Well, can I just say for the movie, one thing that Jonathan and David did that I'm so proud of is I told Jonathan early on, like before David was attached to the film, that I want melodies in the film, and I want for the music to thematically broach the same ideas that are happening on screen. And Jonathan and David together found this brilliant way of, well, what's this film about? It's about three guys that want something that's much bigger than what life can offer them. And so here we have a woodwind trio playing throughout the film, and playing sounds that maybe would sound great accompanied by an orchestra, but there's no orchestra here. It's just these three woodwinds, doing their best, trying their hardest. And I think once you know that, when you watch it, you can hear the movie as well. You can hear the story of the film as you're watching. So I thought that was a brilliant touch on their part.
Yeah, my wife is fond of saying like that the art that appeals to her is about like little things trying really hard, or like little animals that don't know how big they are, like people sort of try and be on their means, which is totally what this movie is. So like all of the sounds in the score tried to be like very, very grand, huge music played by the smallest and shittiest of sounds. It was kind of the idea, and I weirdly a huge point of inspiration for me was Carter Burwell's score for Blood Simple on this, which is his first score, the first Coen Brothers movie. And I mean, I love that movie, but the score is incredible, but it's all played on like very sort of crude 80s, like early digital synths and samplers. Like it's very, very small, but it's this grand, it's trying to be this sort of grand epic. And I thought, well, what if you could do that kind of thing, but intentionally, right? Like I'm not limited by technological means, really. We're not anymore, you know, and so like what are those sounds and how can we make this? And so the woodwind trio came. I think I just met Heather, who played contrabassoon at a party. She was a friend of Brian Miller's, who runs Death Bomb Arc, and I think he just brought her to my house for a barbecue or something, and we were chatting, and I was like, "Oh, a contrabassoon player? I don't meet a lot of you. I'll have to just use you in a score coming up." And then this movie came along, and I thought, well, that sounds like a great fit. And I know Max Kaplan, who plays clarinet and bass clarinet, and I was like, let's just do a woodwind trio. I've never done that before. Again, like this felt like a movie that I could really like take some risks on.
Yeah, I had no one else. I
Really.
wasn't gonna fire you. So.
Yeah, I could have written way worse music. And that didn't really answer the question, but
it does go back to the other thing. It's like you met contrabassoon player at a party, and then you became friends, and then she got the gig, and then it went into the movie, et cetera, et cetera. Now,
yeah,
that's how that stuff works.
I mean, that is a good kind of point. Like, I don't really believe in these like fits of genius or sort of everything falling into place, but I do kind of believe in like synchronicity and these kind of like, you know, sometimes the right reason to do something is just because you met the person the day before and you're like, well, I'm gonna do this thing, and you seem like, let's try this out because this is in front of me now, and that these two things were sort of next to each other in time means that they have some association. And so here we go.
When
you know,
first asked me to play guitar on your stuff, you had never heard me play guitar. You just knew I played guitar, but we hit it off on synthesizers. You know, we're talking about all this other stuff, and you're like, "Oh, you play guitar? You should play on my film." I was like, and then, you know, whatever it is, 15 whatever years later, we're still doing the same thing.
Yeah. Well, I remember specifically, I was over at your house and we were like noodling around with modular synths, and you were like, "Oh," and I saw the guitar in the corner, and you were like, I was like, "Oh, you play guitar?" And you're like, "Oh yeah, I just got a guitar. I haven't had one for a while." And turns out I can still play all of Power Slaves from start to finish from memory. And I was like, "Oh, you're the guitar player I should be working with."
Oh, is that what it was? I don't remember that part of it.
Yeah. You like mentioned something offhand about being able to play an Iron Maiden album, and I think it was Power Slave from start to finish.
No,
I was like,
I think it was.
Yeah.
I could do a couple of them. Yeah. You would never think that ability would land you a job, right? Playing in movies.
Except being in an Iron Maiden cover band, perhaps. Not that first score was a job. I don't think you got paid, if I remember. I didn't get paid, so yeah. I didn't get paid, so I hope you didn't. But
I don't remember.
Yeah.
Paid with, yeah. Sorry.
There's another question from Michael. During the filming and creative process, a lot of things don't happen due to time or budget constraints. How much of the original script and ideas made it into the final film, or was there anything significant that you needed to cut out?
So, you know, there's an ultimate version of the film, you know, that you aspire to make when you write the screenplay, and then there's, you know, what can you do practically. Every day you got to move lights, and we call the movement of lights a setup. So lighting setup can take anywhere from like 30 minutes to like an hour, 2 hours if it's extreme. And then how many hours a day do you have, everyone, your cast, your crew, and how many shots do you need? Every time you move lights, it's going to be like an hour. And so when I delivered the storyboards for this film and was talking about it with the director of photography, I had about 500 more storyboards than was even technically possible in a day. So instead of throwing out everything and paring down the script to almost nothing, I decided when we were filming we would group. This is with my DP and my assistant director. We would group shots accordingly to make the bang for their buck. So like when there's someone at the table in this position, and we know that there's a scene later on in the film where they're kind of sharing similar lighting, we're going to shoot those scenes back to back while we keep the lighting there. And that would require an actor to go from page like 31 of the script to page 65 of the script. And we're talking like 5 minutes difference between that. And that meant placing a lot of trust in my actors. However, it meant I got to film so much more than should be possible when you do a production that's filmed as quickly as this did. None of my vision was compromised in the filming because I did go in with this preparation. Things didn't go to plan always, and there are a million things I would change, as I would with anything I've ever worked on. But the film I set out to make day one of production through, the final edit is the film that it tells the story I set out to tell, and that's ultimately what matters. And accompanied by like an incredible score and like these amazing performances, it is better than what I thought I would end up with as a first-time director.
Yeah, that's great to hear. Always better than having to sacrifice whatever original vision for whatever reason. I can imagine the onset of the pandemic,
Yeah,
affected
well,
that.
there are definitely things I had to like. There are things I cut that you don't see. There's the first cut of this film. This is 90 minutes. The first cut was 2 hours and 10 minutes. So there's a lot that I cut, but ultimately I cut what, and all assembly cuts are typically like really long. But there are full scenes I cut out that I thought, that's just taking away from, the bigger themes here, and it gives Jonathan and David a little less work that they have to do. So cut those out, thinking about everyone.
Mm-hmm. All right. Well, I think we'll move on to the next question. All of you, for everyone, this says, get the sense that you all seem to have a consensus on kind of a less than mainstream ideas for your work. Have any of you had to struggle with discontinuity between ideas for tech elements and the director's idea as either director or musician or designer? If so, how do you handle that?
A
I know
lighting
that applies
designer
less
friend
to
of
this
mine
project.
said
So
to me,
yeah.
yeah, that doesn't really apply to this. I mean, there are obviously like disagreements and notes and revisions and like a collaboration. A lighting designer friend of mine once said to me, this is something I quote all the time because I really, really took it to heart. He's like, when you're in like a tech process, he was talking about theater, but when you're in any kind of collaborative process and the director or whoever you're like taking notes from gives you a note and you refuse to do it, or like you say you don't want to do it, or you fight them about it, really all you're saying to them is, I'm never going to have a better idea. Like what I just did is the best idea I'm ever going to have, and I'm done after that. There's always a way. And if I'm not finding a way to incorporate their note, it's either because it's most likely on me that I just haven't figured it out yet, and I haven't found my window into it, and or I don't understand their note. And sometimes you're dealing with like, sometimes there are notes you should ignore, but yeah, I don't know. That happens a lot. Like working on big commercial projects, like things just get noted to death, and there are so many people in like the real industry whose jobs only exist to like um, their only job is to justify their own job in a way. All these people who like if they don't give a note, it's like, well, why were you in the room? So they have to think of something that they changed that they can claim ownership of, right? And you have to find a way of like saying you're like doing the note without actually doing it and like keeping things in your taste, because if you can sort of suss out who those people are and like what those notes are, you can kind of say like, oh, you're totally right, I'm going to do that, and then just do the other thing that you want to do instead, and they won't know the difference,
Yeah, oftentimes it's a situation where people just can't leave things unchanged because they kind of feel like you're their employee and they're almost obligated to say something even if there's nothing really to be said. Obviously that's not the case in this scenario, but there'll be, like you said, they have to move one frame or change one note, or there's something that if they don't tweak it, it doesn't become. It's kind of like somebody who buys a car off the shelf, but then they have to change all of the badges or something. There has to be this little thing to like like you said,
because otherwise why are they there?
Exactly.
Yeah. Like, I mean, it's especially true, I found, on like video games and commercials and anything with like a lot of money behind it and a lot of like tiered positions. There are all these jobs that are just like to insert themselves in between these creative departments, to act as a filter between these creative departments, which don't actually like make the process go more smoothly. It just makes more work for everybody, and an extra layer of communication. I worked on a video game with somebody else, with another composer. Like, I was just somewhere on the sound design team. We worked on that game for a year, going through like 10, 12, 15 revisions of cues before the director heard one note of music. We were just working with these like music producers. And then when cues were finally approved to the music producers and the director heard everything, he was like, no, this is all stuff we talked about. And we had to go back to version 1, Stuff like that's like makes you crazy. But not on this movie.
No, this was not that at all.
Good answers, boys. Well done. You just check your PayPal in a little bit. You'll get the cash.
Whatever you say, Chief. Yeah.
For Michael, I guess I can combine these two questions. Since you did all these different things, writing, directing, and producing for Murderberry Win, was one of them specifically more difficult for you than any of the others?
Sorry, what do you mean? Was one of what more difficult? Maybe
was
maybe
one
I'm
of
not
those roles, or is because?
Oh, okay, right.
Yeah.
No. They're all parts of me, I think, and they're all parts of the idea behind the film. Once I latched on to everyone represents an idea, it was very clear who the characters had to be. You have Barrett, who is the heart and the soul. He's the creative inspiration, for any creative endeavor. You have Chris, who kind of represents the drive, the pursuit of achievement, and then you have the monetary component. Well, how can I make a living off of this? The monetized aspect, the green money grubbler thing. That's Adam, that little thing. So, once I had, a clear vision of, what everyone represented in the story, it was very, cut and dry. And of course, all of them are, aspects of me, so to speak, though I think I'm most closely like Barrett in real life. I am very much not competitive. I will pick out the funny item, and I'm okay with losing, because I'd rather not, rock the boat.
Mhm.
But in terms of their dialogue. It's just that was the funnest part because it was probably the easiest part for me.
Yeah, when you're that kind of leads into a different question. When you're working on set with these actors, or I guess in the pre-production process, how do you kind of get across the themes and ideas of them that you have in their head, to make them embody that character? Do you have to kind of tweak it a little once you find the actor, or?
Well, so yeah, there were 12 rewrites on this, right? And when I cast everyone, we were on like rewrite 7. And it was when I cast them that I began shaping the roles specifically to them. I'd talk on the phone with them, get to know how they talk. And so I'd really tailor like cadence to them specifically. Um, and a lot of it's just trust. I'm not bringing on people to give line readings to them. I'm bringing them on because I know that they're going to realize this character, and I don't have to think about it. So it's ultimately a lot of trust. A lot of it's on the page, but a lot of the work is through their homework in advance, knowing and getting their characters before they even step on set.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, great. Tessa will kill me if I don't ask this one. So for all of you, do you have a favorite stage play or musical?
Oh man. Favorite play? Well, my favorite musical, I have like a deep, embarrassing, guilty love for Jesus Christ Superstar. I gotta say, I really, really love that show, and I know I shouldn't, and I know it's not good, but I do really love it. Um, a play that I would really like to design that I've taught several times in my class, and I would love I would love somebody to do a production of it and ask me to sound design it someday. Is a play by David Grieg, and I can't remember the full title because the title's like a paragraph long, but it's the cosmonaut's last message to the woman he loved in the former Soviet Union, something along those lines. It's this really, really beautiful play that's like one of the settings is it's sort of inspired by the real story of the cosmonaut who was in space when the Soviet Union collapsed and didn't have a country to return to, and nobody knew what to do with him, and he had to stay up there for months, and his bones turned to jelly. It's a really tragic and amazing and interesting story. But so the play is sort of set on Earth. Central, one of the daughters of these two cosmonauts who are stuck in their space station, which is another setting of the play. It's a really beautiful play with a ton of sound stuff. A director friend of mine turned me on to it. I've been using it in my class for years, and I would love to actually do a production of it. Oh, and Ionesco's The Killer is another one I'd love to work on that I've never gotten to work on. It's a great play.
I'm not really a theater.
Michael, you went to theater school.
I'm not really a theater person at all, but I would say Neil Simon, because I recall a conversation with Jonathan and Bill about how much they dislike Neil Simon. So I'll just say do that just to
Yeah. That is not a theater school answer. Yeah. Although I do kind of, I do really like the Neil Simon thing. Didn't he write, oh God, I'm just blanking on the name of it. That amazing murder mystery movie, Murder by Death. He wrote Murder by Death,
I believe he did, yes.
I think he did, yeah.
That
movie's crazy racist, actually. That's not a great movie to say that I love. Yeah.
Well,
I don't remember.
He's doing research right now.
Yeah.
I was never into theater until my parents dragged me kicking and screaming to Les Miserables when I was 6. And that kind of turned me into the world of theater, and there's always going to be a soft spot in my heart for Les Miserables, like for better and for worse. I just like I can't hear it and like disconnect from my past and like fall in love with the melodies. But I think like the cooler, the smarter answer, which is what I'm really leading up to, is probably Robert Muller's Hamlet Machine, which
we did a production of together.
we did a production of that. You did the music for it in theater, and I feel like there's a million ways you can direct that, and I'd love to revisit that. At least 2 more times in my life. One more time to fuck it up again, and then like get it right the 3rd time.
What happened the first time?
Oh, there wasn't enough Jonathan. There wasn't enough of his music. That was the issue. We needed a little bit more of that.
I don't remember literally anything that we did in that production.
We did. We did. Do you remember Where's Waldo?
I do remember Where's Waldo that my wife directed.
Yes, we did a production of.
We did
Where's.
we did a stage adaptation of Where's Waldo, where Michael just dressed as Waldo and appeared in other people's plays in the background.
And then whenever I would
during
appear
the student theater festival at UCLA,
we would just like Jonathan or someone would hit the Where's Waldo boombox or whatever, and then like whatever clothes I was wearing, no matter where I was, I'd rip my clothes off to reveal Waldo beneath, and I would just stand there and wave, and then we began to,
and then somebody in the audience would be like, "There he is," and then that would be over.
Yeah, I'm so sad you could, because I asked you to find that track a while back and you couldn't find it, but it's burned in my memory. I have a video of it.
I have the Where's Waldo theme music anymore. Okay, good.
I do have a video of me appearing as Waldo, and half the people going, "There he is," the other people going, "What the fuck is this?"
It was so dumb.
It was so good.
Yeah.
Wow. So is that the answer? That's your favorite stage show? Is Where's Waldo?
I'm fine with
sure.
Sure.
Wow. Let's see here. For all of you, I guess, what does your creative process usually look like? And specifically, when you get a block in that creative process, what do you do to overcome that? And does that process change a lot when you're collaborating with other people versus working by yourself?
Deadlines help a lot with getting over creative blocks.
Yeah.
When you're like, "Hey, this is due in the morning. Gotta have something."
I would say the exact same thing. Time constraints.
It's
yeah.
Creative, like the fewer. I mean, it's kind of like what I said about like writing to picture being easier than just writing pure music. Is like the more constraints you have, the fewer options you feel like you have, and the clearer the path forward is. Which is, I mean, to talk about clipping for a second, like that's exactly why I think clipping was so successful. Set up all these constraints for ourselves, and we're like, well, we really only have one path forward, but there are always an infinite number of paths, right? It's just when you feel like you only have one path forward, that's kind of you finding your voice in a weird way, like, too, I think, a little bit. And so, yeah, working in picture, I'm not sure what composer was I watching an interview with? It might have been Christopher. I don't remember, who was like, I will never. Might have been Morricone. I don't know, but some composer that I was reading or watching an interview with was like, I will never run out of ideas for movie music because I have all the inspiration I need right in front of me all the time. Like, and I kind of do find that to be true, that like the blockages and the like fear and the anxiety that I feel about making music in general it's less when working on a movie, because I have this thing to respond to, and it's always easier to like answer a question than to ask a question, right? Like it's always easier to like respond to something than to make a new statement out of nothing.
Personally is also like, it's not necessarily a shortage of ideas, it's whether or not it's the right idea. And that's where for me it's like, I think this is really cool, especially when if you're in a collaborative environment. You're like, you got that deadline, you're working, whatever the scenario is, and then you have this idea that you really like, but you're like, oh, that's kind of weird. I don't know, is it the right idea? Because I could do this and I could do this, and and then making that decision, and it's always that's where I get stopped up sometimes, and I usually always go for the weirdest one that I like, and that is the one when I try to curb it to what I think somebody else is going to like, or listen to that, that thing that's blocking me. That's usually the wrong choice almost every time.
Well, the path of least resistance is
Right,
usually
yeah.
the right choice too. Like if I have like this melody in my head, but it's taking too long to get into the computer or onto the tape or whatever, and I'm like really fighting it and like trying to make it work and sort of micro adjusting notes, it usually just means it's the wrong idea and I should start over, like things that come quickly, usually not always are the right path forward. Like the first gesture should be really effortless, and then the like tweaking and the obsessing comes later, in the technical part of it.
Yeah, I think that really
think.
that really applies to the writing as well, which is I believe in write ugly, edit pretty. Like I just
Yeah.
like I'm like, oh man, that's a dumb line. Who gives a shit? Let's move forward. That's what they said, and that's part of the character now. That informs my story, and it's just like you have to. Y for me, like I can't stop to second guess myself every step of the way. Later, absolutely, I will flog myself. Is that the right word? Flog, is that
Yeah.
appropriate? Flog.
Yeah.
Sorry,
Yeah.
my vocabulary is not
Flog.
great. Um, but yeah, I'll flog myself later, as needed, and torture myself over, revisions. But in the beginning, when you're just playing, you really have to tap into, the side of yourself that allows yourself to fuck up, because you're going to be editing for a much longer period than you're going to be creating in the first place, with rare exception. So just allowing yourself to like have trust yourself to fuck up and not judge yourself too harshly, and that really helps me get through any concept of a block.
Yeah, speaking of editing, actually, someone asked, as a film editor, I would love to hear what it was like being the editor to your own film, and also what did you use for editing? Yeah, I guess what process or what software did you use for editing?
Yeah. So the every software is like can be a useful tool. It's just you really got to think down the road, where is this edit going to live when you do the final export, and you want to make sure you want to think backwards, because when you're on like nonlinear software, I mean all editing is not nonlinear editing, but uh, I knew I would pump this out of Resolve in the end because I wanted to do a good color grade, and I needed to do something that connected with Resolve. And it's not that I don't like editing with Resolve, but I don't like editing with Resolve. So I edited with Premiere, and it was fun. I just had a great time editing it. Again, it was like the same mentality of writing, like edit ugly, re-edit like pretty later. So, my first pass, 2 hours and 10 minutes, and I was fine with that. The first time I showed Jonathan and David part of the film, it was the first half of the film, which that's up until Officer Dan arrives. And that comes at like the 45-minute point in the film. But when I showed them the film, it was like an hour. Right. And I just had to show them like something that was ugly, knowing I'm going to edit it later, make it pretty. What's it like editing my own stuff? Really fun. Like, I knew I would be editing the film when I went in, so a lot of the time I shot for the edit when I was on set. If I knew like I'm not going to use this, I would stop a scene in its tracks and say like, no, we got to try something different, and like redirect the scene. So again, know where you're going to end up. In my case, I knew I would need to use Premiere to connect with Resolve, and I knew I would edit it, so I had to direct with the intention of like giving myself something to edit later.
Great, yeah. Okay, I think we have a few more questions. If anyone has any last minute stuff. Sorry, go ahead.
I'm realizing what time it is. I should probably run really soon here, but
yeah,
I've been
should we
at
do
this quite a while. But
all right.
John, you're going nowhere. You're gonna stay. You're gonna stay right there.
It's just like making the movie all over again.
I will flog you, Jonathan.
Are there any films or soundtracks that you'd like to see? This person said repressed or re-released. And similar to that, are there any inspirations for your work in music or film, I guess specifically with soundtracks, that you want to geek out about and that you don't often have a chance to talk about?
That's kind of all we talk about.
I mean, yeah, it's kind of like literally all I talk about ever.
It's a tough one.
Somebody should release the score for Manhunter. I can't believe that has never come out. Just like try to put that out in the world occasionally. That Michael Rubini's score for Manhunter has never been released, and that seems crazy to me. Anyway,
have we ever discussed Full Circle, the score for Full Circle?
No,
that one's really good. That one nobody knows. Oh God, I can't remember the composer. It's a horror movie from the early '70s. Really good.
I've never heard of that movie.
Yeah. That one, I'm surprised more people don't know.
Full Circle, aka The Haunting of Julia.
Exactly.
That movie I do know. Oh, it's a Harry Bromley Davenport.
Do you know that one?
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. I've never seen it, but I know it. Yeah, I know that it exists.
That's a good one. I don't hear a lot of people talk about.
Weirdly, I was talking about Giorgio Moroder the other day. Weirdly, there's never been a Scarface score album.
Yeah, that is strange.
Yeah, isn't that strange? Yeah. I would love an expanded Metropolis score album as well. His 80s Metropolis rescoring. The soundtrack album has all the songs on it, but there's no score record.
Jonathan, in the movie chat, I'm saying that there was a double vinyl release of the Manhunter score. Not Xander is telling this.
Oh yeah.
What?
Tisk, tisk, tisk.
No, but it's the fucking soundtrack. It's all the songs. It's not the Michael Rubini. I remember this. Yeah. It has one piece of Michael Rubini music. It has Graham's theme. It's just a double vinyl re-release soundtrack. I want the score.
Shame on you, not Xander. Shame.
I remember this. Such a dick. I'm sorry. I mean, I also totally should buy this. I don't have it, but oh, it's $70. Nah, I'm good.
All right. Well, I guess just finally to wrap it up, what are all three of you working on next? What can we expect to see from you? What should we look out for?
I had an album come out yesterday, apparently, that I forgot about.
Oh, that's right. Glitch in the Matrix, right?
Yeah, my score for Glitch in the Matrix came out digitally yesterday. I forgot that was happening about it because I was working on other things. But that's pretty good. You should check that out. Vinyl's out in June, I think. June or July.
Yeah, the thing that I just put out a record about a month ago.
Which is very good. Yeah.
Thank you. And then I'm working on another thing for. I don't know if I'm allowed to talk about it. Am I allowed to talk about the thing? I'm not sure. It's a clipping related thing that I'm.
Oh no.
Okay. So no.
I don't. Wait, is it story 3? Is it story 3?
Oh, look at that! I gotta go, guys.
David, is this the album you just released? That one?
That is
Wow,
correct.
that's
Yeah.
the one. Look
Yeah,
at
I've been
that.
listening to it on my tape deck while I work. It's great.
Thank you very
So
much.
good.
It's really good. You can order it now at where, David?
What was your PayPal again?
Yeah.
I think I checked yesterday, and I think it's actually sold out. I don't know if it's available in any other stores, but
It is not. It is. The tapes are gone, but yeah, you can get it through Bandcamp.
all right.
It might. Yeah, we'll see. Might be doing either a second edition of more tracks, or might do a second edition of those tracks too. We'll see.
Oh, awesome. And Michael, I know that you just kind of had a culmination of this project, but do you have any ideas about what you want to do next?
Yeah, I got I'm always juggling, whatever thing I could write ugly at a time. And I have, I'd say, like 4 different tiered projects I'm focusing on. Look at the people logging out as soon as Michael starts talking. Wow. I won't forget this. I don't remember who it was, but I won't forget this clipping Discord. Like a bronze, a silver, a gold, and a platinum tier screenplays in terms of budget. Like if I'm paying for it, I'll do the bronze. But if someone else wants to pay, silver, gold, and platinum, please. And they're all, related to my interests, and one of them's a little bit more. I'll tell you that all of them will involve, all or any of them will ideally involve, the musical talents of, my buddies here, because like I am in control of them and their lives, they also are in control of the sounds of my film, and I don't really have many options because people don't want to work with me.
Great. Well, I think I speak for everyone when I say we are excited to see what is coming up next from all 3 of you. Great. So I think that about wraps it up. I really appreciate all 3 of you coming and participating in this. Before we end, sorry, go ahead.
I was just gonna say this was really fun, and I had a good time, Lucas. Thank you.
Thank you. I appreciate that. Before we end, I do have a favor to ask. If you guys don't mind, if you would contribute to the longest running joke in the server, which is the outro channel, as you might see. I just put a link to it in the chat, and also you can see it's just on the sidebar there. If you could go in there and type a get money in there, I think we're on a couple thousand entries. So
Wow.
um,
Y'all are hilarious. This is very funny. Well, here's a funny piece of trivia about that outro. So we had the idea to do that like Steve Reich kind of phase piece with the words "get money," which appeared in the song before in the song "Real," and I was like, oh, the extra layer is that let's make that piece, and then let's play it in a car while we drive around LA, right? So that we have this kind of like, and I'll re-record it from in the car. So I was in the back seat. David was driving, I think, and David and Bill were in the front, and I was in the back with all my gear recording it. And we drove around, and we did it like 2 or 3 times to get the right kind of. But in the one that's on the record, we at one point drove through the alley that contains the entrance to the venue, The Smell in LA, where we play a lot and are, friends with, and driving through that alley next to The Smell, realized there were a bunch of people in the alley, and we're like, oh, there must be a show at The Smell tonight. And then we realized as we drove through this crowd right outside The Smell that everybody in that crowd, because it was a show that we were for sure supposed to have gone to, because like our friend, it was like a big smell related festival, and like all of our friends were playing, and we had just all completely forgotten. And I literally ducked and like hid in the back of the car. And I don't think anybody recognized us, but that recording, like there's a crowd at one point in money rating, and it's yeah.
Quite a lot of
Yeah,
spite to
I'm
do
sure
that.
Brian Miller is standing right next to the car as we drive by. Yeah, it's just like
Quite spiteful to do
oh,
that
we're
while
such
you're
bad
blasting
friends.
"Get Money" over and over again out of the car.
Get money, get money, get money, get money. I know, right? Yeah, it's so rough. It's very funny.
Well, I think that
And we were
wraps
in like, because it's like
Oh, sorry.
13 minutes long. We were in like, yeah. No, it's a very long thing working on a 4 of 13. So we didn't just like park and go hang out either. We just kept going and kept doing it. But, oh well, it's very funny.
Great. Well, I think that about wraps it up. Thank you to the three of you for participating again. I appreciate that. Hopefully, we can do something similar to this again in the future. Great.
Yeah.
Well,
Think
thank
we'll-
you.
Yep.
Yeah.
I think we'll sign
Yeah,
off.
thanks a lot. All right.
Why disconnect when I don't have to? I could just stay on here all fucking night. All right. I will be hanging out in the little movie chat a little bit. Wait, should I type my responses or? Yeah, it's Michael's channel now. That's right. That's right. That's stupid. I like dumb jokes, as you could see.
We don't
if
have
you
anything
watch my
else
film.
planned. You're free to go on as long as you'd like.
Oh, excellent! I don't have a life to get back to. I'll, you know what? I'll answer. Sorry, Lucas. Does this keep you up if I hang here a few minutes and answer a few straggling questions?
Not at all. It's still early for me.
Okay, awesome. Well, I probably got about 15 minutes left before I need to get back to my wife and my daughter. But 15 minutes. Lucas, do you want to hang out there and throw questions, or could I just read them off my cuff? And
I mean,
go-
feel free to pick one that you're interested in. Yeah, I think you should pick them out.
Okay. Should I hop in movie night chat or Q&A questions?
I think most of the questions are in Q&A questions, but
Okay.
I see people are putting questions in the movie night chat too, so it's completely up
Oh
to you.
man, that is so fucking stressful. Okay, hold on. So I'm not gonna scroll up. I'll hang out in movie night chat for a few minutes.